Hey everybody, welcome back. Tack till sist, välkommen tillbaka. This will be a fairly short video because I don't think there's a whole lot to this subject. But for some reason, this popped into my head. I'm sitting here watching TV and I was kind of running through things I could talk about on a video in my head. Couldn't really come up with anything, so I was like, I'll wait for another day. And all of a sudden, this popped into my head, and I'm curious if this is pretty universal in the Mormon Church, growing up in the Mormon Church. It definitely happened where I lived and where I grew up, to almost every Mormon kid I knew. And that was going wild for a while, either in high school or maybe in college, and just kind of sowing your wild oats a little bit, going a little bit crazy for a while. I grew up in a little town. When we moved from Norway, we moved to this little tiny nothing town in the middle of the prairies in Alberta, Canada. And at the time in 1968, I think it was about 4,000 people. We had moved from Stavanger, Norway, which now is about 160, 170,000 people. We were just there a week and a half ago. But back then it was probably more like 30 or 40,000, 50,000, something like that, which was significantly bigger than this little town we moved to though. And I know that part of the reason we moved is so my dad wanted us to be raised, I think, around other Mormons. He has other reasons too. I was going to interview him last time he was down because I'd like him to tell his story. I think some of you might find it really cool, especially if you're active LDS. But even if you aren't, I think you'd find his conversion story pretty cool. He has a lot of details and you could never sway him off it. He's very sure of it. Anyway, I think part of the reason we moved to Canada was to be around Mormons. And the little town I grew up in, I think it was about a third Mormon. That town is about 10,000 now, and I'm guessing maybe it's not a third, but there's probably a couple of thousand Mormons there. Now, how many are active, I don't know, but excuse me. But in the group that I hung out with, and not just the group I hung out with, because I hung out with probably mostly Mormon kids, but not exclusively. And I knew everybody in the town that was Mormon around my age. I might not have known them like good friends, but I knew them all. And other than just a handful of kids, and when I say handful, maybe, I guess a handful would be 5, right? 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood didn't have their turn and when I say wild streak, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just doing things you're not supposed to do as a Mormon kid, whether it's, drinking or smoking some pot back in the day, or, doing things with your girlfriend that you weren't supposed to do. Almost every single one of them went a little wild. In fact, there's a joke that went around. I heard it even when I was active. How does it go now? I don't remember the whole joke, but basically it's like, if you're going fishing with a Mormon, take one other person, otherwise they'll drink all your beer. And I knew a lot of Mormons like that. Now, a lot of them ended up going back, and if you want to call it straightening out, I don't call it that now, but then it was getting back on the straight and narrow. A lot of them did. I don't know if those people are all in the church now. I have no clue. But it seemed to be pretty universal. Where I grew up, Lethbridge, Alberta was kind of the center hub. It was, 30 or 40,000 people when we were in high school. But to us, that was kind of a big city. Calgary was the big city, but that was 3 hours away. And there were all these small towns just dotted around Lethbridge, and almost all of them had a big Mormon population. So, like for instance, I don't think I ever dated a girl from my high school. I only dated girls from these other little Mormon towns. Some of them were very Mormon towns. Like Cardston is probably well over half were LDS. Raymond was like that. McGrath was like that. And if you grew up in those areas, you know these towns. But yeah, I only dated girls from out of town, basically. I don't know if I ever had a girlfriend in Tabor that was from Tabor. I don't think I did, now that I think about it. That's kind of crazy. But when I went to college at Rick's College, it was a very similar thing. There were a lot of good kids. I hate using that term because to me, you drink beer in college, that's part of the experience. But I know if you're Mormon, it's not. So when I say good, I'm just using it in reference to being a Mormon. So there were lots of good kids at Rick's that, you know, lived the rules, did everything they were supposed to do. But I saw so much partying at that school. A lot of people don't want to hear that. That's BYU, Idaho now. This is 40 years ago. 40 plus. I have no idea what it's like now, so I'm not trying to judge it. But if you grew up LDS and you grew up around a significant Mormon population, I'm curious if that's kind of universal and that just happens with every group of teenagers. I know that I've seen, I probably shouldn't use the name, but there's a friend of one of my kids who was, when she was growing up, and this is quite a few years ago, her parents were extremely strict. And, you know, she was not allowed to date. I don't even think when she turned 16, she was allowed to date. And it's a pretty girl, lots of guys asked her out. And her parents were just, in my opinion, over the top with rules and conditions. And when she went off to college, she went wild. Now, those are the kids where I grew up. Like, my parents were pretty strict, but not hardcore. I mean, if I did something wrong, I'd be in trouble. But once I hit 16 especially, and I was driving, I bought my own car, I paid for my own insurance, I bought my own clothes. My parents did provide a house for me, but I would have been able to move out at 16 if I needed to. So I had a lot of freedom. What was my point? I lost my train of thought. Anyway, yeah. So kids that were really enforced as far as rules and living in the church, those ones I saw quite often really go quite crazy. I think most came back eventually. Some didn't. I mean, that's just normal. People like to argue what the percentages of people that are active in the Mormon Church, because the numbers range all the way from 25 to 40, 45%. I don't believe for a second it's anywhere near 45%. I think it's probably more in the 25 or 30% range. I've talked about this before. I did not leave the church because of the rules, the word of wisdom, none of that. If it was something I believed in and wanted to follow, I wouldn't drink beer. That just would never stop me. But there are plenty of rules in the church, especially if you're a kid that's born into it and you're raised in it and you just don't have a lot of say in the matter, that especially if you don't believe, just don't seem right. They seem oppressive. And you see other kids out there, doing what you think is the fun stuff. And some of it is fun stuff, let's be real. Anyway, I said I'd keep this one shorter, so I'm curious to hear, no matter where you're from in the US, Canada, the world, Norway, wherever, if it's a smaller group of LDS, are they more likely to stay on the straight and narrow? Whereas, where I grew up, there were a lot of Mormons, so you could kind of get lost in the shuffle almost. I mean, that doesn't really make sense, but almost everybody had their little, I'm going to go be a normal kid for a while thing. So anyway, looking forward to reading your comments. Let me know what you think. whatever your situation is. I'm looking forward to reading it. So I hope you have a great night. Tack för den gången. Vi snackas igen snart. Thanks for following the channel. I really appreciate it. Peace. Love.